History records that they called us indios, people in God, because we were people of spirit, of faith, and very prayerful. Now, to follow the traditional road is called following the red road. It is a walk in a sacred way, Sirata Mustaqim. It is a philosophy of life, a way of life, a deen, in which one spends reverence to the Creator, recognizing our connection and responsibility to all creation, the Khilafat of Mankind. In Surah Yunus, Allah tells us that every nature has had a messenger. And I have no doubt that my ancestors received revelation from Allah, because there's too much in the belief system and philosophies that connect to Islam. Every native that I have known that have come to Islam, they all feel a sense of coming home, because a lot of what we learn in Islam is a part of what we already know. From the beginning of time, when Allah breathed life into the first human, and to this very day, mankind has never been without a guidance, whether it be through Allah Ta'ala's revealed words, or the examples and teachings of the holy prophets, or the inspiration and stewardship of the holy imams. We have always had a beacon to show us a way for success, not only in this life, but in the life to come. Time and time again within the Quran, we are told to think and to ponder, to examine and contemplate all the world around us and all of creation, because within creation, Allah has planted His pattern, His sunan, and it teaches us. There's a hadith that says, worship does not lie in copious prayers and fasting, but in the contemplation of the works of God. A Muslim must think, observe, contemplate, and appreciate all the aspects of creation in order to truly comprehend and practice the path that Islam directs. There is an Indian story of an elder telling his grandson. He said, there is a fight going on inside me, and it is a terrible fight between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. And he continued, the other is good. He is kindness, sincerity, hope, humility, benevolence, empathy, compassion, and faith. This fight is going on inside you too, son, and between all the people in the world. The grandson listened for a few moments, and then he asked his grandfather, well, which will win? And the grandfather simply told him, the one you feed. Within humans, there are two aspects. There is the physical known as the tabiya. This is the self-centered nature. It is focused on survival. It's seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. This is an aspect that we have in common with animals. It's not necessarily evil, but it is a very base instinct, and it originates in negativity. It is a conflict-based instinct. When we are born, we have no real sense of self. We develop a sense of self as our needs develop, and this forms our ego. We become hungry, or cold, or wet. And as babies, we have no means to communicate this need, so we cry. So the mom or dad comes along, and they fulfill these needs. So our first identity is based on a stressor and seeking the fulfillment of it. Tabiya is very important because it is a self-preservation characteristic. The second aspect is Fitrah, and this is what makes us unique. When Allah Ta'ala created mankind, the angels were confused. They could see the Tabiya, but they were puzzled. And they asked Allah, will you place on the earth one who will make mischief and spread blood? Whereas we praise you and praise your holy names. But Allah told them, I know something that you do not. What the angels didn't know is that Allah had given us Fitrah, the spiritual aspect. Think of the names of Allah: intelligent, kind, just, merciful, loving, forgiving. These are the virtues that we as believers aspire towards. Through free will, it is this Fitrah that is the aspect that gives us the ability to exceed the status of the angels. And that's why Allah commanded them to prostrate before man. It is the essence of Allah, and it explains the hadith. To know oneself is to know Allah. In order for us to grow spiritually, we must be able to recognize both of these aspects of human nature and put them in the proper stead. Both are essential, but it is the Fitrah that must drive us, and not the tabiya. We must understand that we are not this physical self. This is just a carrier that we use in this life. We are not physical beings in search of a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having an earthly experience. In order to understand this, we must free ourselves from the clutter in our mind, from the thoughts that evolve out of fear, ego, and desire. We are not our minds. We are the spirit behind all of that clutter. We have to lift the veil in order to see our true selves. Again, whoever knows himself knows his Lord. But most people are unconscious. This is the problem with the world today. Humans are disconnected from their source. They live in these tiny delusional bubbles of their mind and are completely unaware of true reality. Their attention is absorbed with the hurts of the past and the desires and stresses of the future. Physical and emotional suffering is a normal part of life, but psychological suffering is not. It only occurs when there is a disconnect from Allah. Allah is always there, but we're out of focus. There's a famous philosopher who once said, "I think, therefore I am." Well, this is wrong. You are not your mind. Thoughts lie. The mind is the playground of Shaitan and his whisper. You are not the thinker. You are greater than that. You are the being behind the thoughts. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he said, "Your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. Your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. What you seek is within you, if only you reflect." Awakening the Fitrah within you requires intellect and maturity. It is with us from birth as it is the natural disposition of our soul, but it basically lies dormant. And from the first cry at birth, the tabia is triggered and self-preservation and ego is formed. Then it takes over. But the Fitrah, must be cultivated. It is an effort of this cultivation that earns us the position that Allah created us for. Enlightenment is our natural state, but the mind acts as a veil against it. You can feel the presence of Allah, but the mind cannot grasp it. In Najul Balagha, Ali says, "All praises to him whom the height of intellectual courage cannot appreciate, and the divings of understanding cannot reach." So how do we reach such a state? How do we gain our focus? You simply choose. How many times have you said to yourself, "Quit thinking that"? It really is that simple. That's what it's all about. It is our minds that tell us that everything is complicated and difficult, but our thoughts lie. Allah gave us religion as a mercy. It's humans that muck it up. There's a story amongst the Lakota people of a man who went hunting one day. He was following a trail and he came to a river. And in the river he saw these huge, juicy plums, just right for the picking. He reached out his hands and he dove in, but they disappeared. In disappointment, he went home cold and wet, and there was nothing to cook over the fire that night. The next day he went out again, and again he saw these delicious plums, and he reached out and he dove after them, and again they disappeared. And he went home again, cold, disappointed, nothing to eat. Well, the third day when he went out, his wife followed him. She was getting pretty hungry, and she wanted to see why he came home with nothing every day. And she followed him and saw him go to a river, and beside the river there was a tall plum tree. But he was leaning into the river, reaching for the water. So she whacked him in the head with a cooking pot and said, "Husband, what is wrong with you? Why are you chasing illusions when the truth is right over your head?" Throughout our life, we will battle between our nafs and our iman. Jihad al-Akbar is an ongoing struggle, no doubt. There is a continual evolution of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Through this process of repeated actions of virtue, we can build our malaka. A malaka is a fortification of the soul that comes through repeated actions of good until they become as natural as breathing. It is a process and an effort that you keep working at. Enlightenment, however, can come in an instant. Alabay TV has a program called Reborn, and it tells stories of converts and how they come to Islam. In the episode that I did, I talk about the day that I embraced Islam. I was sitting under a tree outside my apartment reading Quran. Now, I never started researching Islam because I wanted it. My intention was to prove it was a false religion. I was perfectly comfortable with my faith, and I was not seeking anything to change in my beliefs. I had friends that carried the tag of Muslim, and they had insulted me as a Christian. And in my arrogance, I thought it would be very easy to do a little research, prove Islam was false, throw it in their face, and give them a taste of humble pie for their arrogance. I thought it would be a very easy thing to do. But on this particular day, I was sitting under a tree reading Quran, and all of a sudden I felt like I had been slapped in the face and kicked in the stomach at the same time. I literally doubled over and I couldn't breathe. It was like the wind had been knocked out of me. But what had been knocked out was my pride. And everything that I thought that reality was, everything that I knew all my life of how things were, it vanished. And the veil was lifted. And I saw true reality of the world and of myself. Enlightenment can come in an instant. In the Quran, we read the story of Moses and the magicians. Fitrah was believed to be a god. He had promised the magicians that they would be closest to him if they had showed up Moses. They too, like me, thought it would be very easy. They knew all the tricks. But when they saw the miracles performed by Moses by the leave of Allah, they submitted. Immediately they knew that it was real. They didn't think about it. They didn't hold a meeting to discuss it. They fell face down right then and there and submitted, saying, "We believe in the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Moses and Aaron." And Pharaoh, as powerful and as cruel as he was in his threats, it didn't matter. They simply said to him, "To our Lord we return." Enlightenment can come in an instant. But if you want to open yourself to enlightenment, there's some simple steps that you could follow. First, just take a deep breath, a deep cleansing breath, and then make a conscious decision that you want to eliminate the clutter from your mind. Recognize that you are not your thoughts. You are the spirit behind them. This spirit, the true you. When you recognize your true identity, peace will come. Let go of the past. It doesn't exist. Let go of the hurt that you carry. Scar tissue is stronger anyway. Quit chasing happiness. When I graduate college, then I'll be happy. When I get the marriage, when I get the kids, when I get the house, I'll be happy then. When I get. We get things, we lose things. And this kind of happiness is fleeting. And when it goes, we feel empty inside. It's like the man who drinks seawater. The more he drinks, the thirstier he gets. People who are constantly trying to fill themselves from the outside will never have true happiness, because true happiness only comes from the inside. People who are constantly focused either on the past or on the future have totally lost the now. They are not present. They are not living. They lose their entire life because they're not in it. They're not present. Life is now. The past is gone, and none of us are promised a future. So why are we stressing over it so much? Live today. Accept the now. Rumi said, "What veils us from God is time. There is no greater loss to God and no greater obstacle to God than the loss of now." This is the secret of all great thinkers. Imam Khomeini said, "You should become so connected with the presence that you do not need your mind to remind you." And when you meet people that understand this and activate it in their life, you can see it in their face. The light, the Nur, and Nur, by the way, is real. It is a tangible entity. Science teaches us that when you break everything down, everything is energy. A friend of mine in San Diego, Sheikh Ali ibn Abi Talib, he stated very beautifully, light is energy, the purest form of energy. Knowledge is one frequency of light. Truth is another frequency of light. Justice is another frequency of light. Faith, hope, and love are still brighter lights, and the soul gets brighter and brighter with more and more virtue perceived, practiced, and inculcated. Have you met people with that glow? It's real, and it's obtainable by all of us. This enlightenment can be a part of your life just as easy as it was for Moses. He merely said, "Ya Rab," and Allah responded. There's a hadith of Moses asked Allah, "Is this just for me?" And Allah said, "No, it's for anyone who attaches themselves to me." As it tells us in the Quran, "Call on me, I will answer you." And in the hadith, take one step towards Allah, and Allah will come running to you. When you simplify, you see clearer. Mental clutter distracts us from our true self and purpose, and the media thrives on this. It is a constant bombardment. If you turn on your TV but mute the sound and you watch it, You think they're telling you the most important thing in the world. But then when you turn on the sound, you realize all they're talking about is dish soap. It's a constant bombardment, distraction. It's like a fan that has been on so long that you don't hear the buzz anymore. But when you turn it off, you realize the silence. Life will always have stress. There's always going to be suffering. It is the nature of life to have hardships. But when you live a life that is driven by Fitrah, you will see a purpose to it and a wisdom behind it. We need conflict in order to evolve spiritually. The opportunity for spiritual growth would not be present without it. If your life is driven by Tabi'ah, you won't understand this. Tabi'ah wants comfort, but it's focused on the comfort of the body. And it's in constant motion, going from one need to the next. It never stays happy for very long. It never stays satisfied because all of these fulfillments are superficial. Any superficial fulfillment is not a true fulfillment. True fulfillment can only come from a relationship with Allah. Fitrah is fixed. It knows the source it came from. It knows its sustenance, and it knows its destiny. A life that is guided by Fitrah is a life from God, in God, to God. In the 13th surah of the Quran, Allah tells us, "Let it be known to you that it is only the remembrance of Allah that will bring you peace." Tabi'ah is an important aspect of our nature. We need it. We utilize it to use this physical shell that carries our soul in this life. The body needs the soul and the soul needs the body. The body is the resource that the soul utilizes to grow. The martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it shows us this. The suffering he endured, the sacrifice of his life, is a fountain in which our souls drink from. The relationship of these two aspects of our nature should be complementary if it is the Fitrah that is in the driver's seat. Then the normal actions of the physical can take on a sacred tone. Think of eating. In and of itself, it's just a physical action. If the Tabi'ah controls you, you can easily fall into gluttony or eating things that are haram and unhealthy. But if Fitrah is in control, it becomes altogether different. When you do or don't do with the intention of the love of Allah, a sacredness is attached to it. During Shahr Ramadan, your restraint from eating, a physical act, becomes an act of worship because of your Fitrah. During fasting, even your sleep becomes an act of worship, and your very breath becomes a tasbih. Think of prayer. You think on the surface, this is an act of Fitrah. However, if you're driven by Tabi'ah, then your prayer just might be a mechanical act, or it might be just for show, and it loses its sacredness. Tabi'ah attaches itself to things of this temporal war, and therefore it is limited, whereas Fitrah attaches to the eternal. Only Allah is eternal, and when you attach yourself to Allah, your potential becomes limitless, and in this way you grow. Conflict is necessary, and in it there is wisdom. Atheists who believe that all of creation is just some sort of accident, that there's no meaning to it, that it just happened. And they feel that they are superior in their arguments because they will tell you that they can do good just as well as a person of faith. And in fact, they will tell you that their good is better than that of a person of faith because they do it simply for the act of it being good, and not because they believe that there is some sky daddy that's going to burn them if they don't. However strong as they feel in their argument, it doesn't hold water. And the truth comes because it's not in doing good that you find the real truth in the test. It's in hardship that you find the truth. In suffering, they have nothing to lean on, and they sink, whereas a believer only grows stronger, and that belief makes us soar. There is wisdom in pain. There is a hadith that states there's so much mercy in being ill that if we knew how much mercy was in it, we would all want to be ill all the time. Suffering is a part of life. But until we stop asking why we must suffer, we will not evolve. It is the Tabi'ah that asks why, whereas Fitrah simply seeks the wisdom behind the pain. We simply must shift our perspectives because Allah tells us in Quran that all good comes from Allah and the bad comes from ourselves. If we study ourselves, perhaps we will see where the bad is coming from and what we need to do to correct it. What is keeping us from Allah, and what do we need to do to break through the barrier? Pride, addiction, false gods, greed, lust. We create these barriers and disconnect ourselves from our source. Imam Zain al-Abidin said, "The journey to you is short. You are never far or disconnected from your creatures. You're never veiled from them except for the veil that they place themselves by having hope in other than you. Allah instructs in Surah Al-Rum, and so set thy face steadfastly towards the one true faith, turning away from all that is false, in accordance to the natural disposition which Allah has bestowed upon man, the Fitrah. This should be your driver in this temporary place we call life. Now, there are 4 mental affirmations that you can do that may help you to lift the veil and free yourself towards the opportunity for enlightenment. Number 1, say to yourself, I am in Allah's presence. I am never alone. Wherever I go, whatever I do, whatever I think. Sorry. It's okay. It's okay. Wherever I go, whatever I do, whatever I think, Allah is there witnessing it. Allah is closer to you than your jugular. Remind yourself of this repeatedly throughout the day. And every word that you say, every action you perform, every thought you conceive, until this knowledge of His presence is all-encompassing. Impress this into your life until it resounds with each heartbeat. Create a cognizant awareness within yourself that this is ongoing, that you feel His presence, and it will truly affect your actions and your thoughts. Secondly, say to yourself, everything that I have been given is by Allah. All that there is surrounding me, on me, in me, comes from Allah. Reflect on all the barakat, all the blessings that Allah gives you, and there is so much. Be grateful for it. Live an attitude of gratitude. 3, and this is one of the hardest ones. Recognize that hardship is a natural aspect of life. One of the greatest veils that we place between us and Allah is the bewilderment of why does Allah allow suffering and strife? If He is so great and so merciful, why does He allow us to struggle and hurt? Life is a test of struggle, and you will not escape this. You must always remember, when you are facing hardship, that it is not the hardships of your life that define you, but how you respond to them. Train yourself to look for the wisdom in the struggle, because struggle is an activator. It is the fuel for change and development. 4th, unclutter your life, especially your mind. Simplify your path so that your direction will become clear. Open yourself for the opportunity for enlightenment. We all have busy schedules, but most of it is just an illusion that we ourselves have created, an illusion of our minds. Again, realize you are not the thinker, but the spirit behind the thoughts. We invest years of our life in education. We invest years of our life in our careers. And these are important things, no doubt, and you should strive for them. However, they are not the most important things. Take time for what matters most, your spiritual clarity. But when you have this, the rest will fall into place. I thank you for listening. Any mistakes are mine. All praise goes to Allah. Assalamu alaikum.